that I make. Poor spider, I will burn your home in order to escape. And when the darkness grows into my heavily loaded back, I'll shake it off my shoulders and I'll follow my own track.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Nick.
And together we are
the Vagabonds. He's probably drinking scotch.
Today he's drinking Toxic Masculinity.
Yeah.
Today our show is brought to you by Toxic Masculinity Whiskey. Best rye whiskey in America. We also make a bourbon, and it is the perfect Christmas gift, especially for all your liberal and progressive friends and any feminists that you might have on your list. So get on the internet, www.toxicmasculinitywhiskey.com, order a bottle, and it'll be shipped right to your house.
We're also available for lawnmower repair and reasonably honest marriage advice.
Well, it can't be shipped to the Commonwealth of Virginia because we still have such pedestrian alcohol laws.
Legally it can, maybe, but who knows?
Go down to the corner.
You're right.
There'll be a yellow van that will drive up.
Yeah.
Not
Tell
the yellow.
the IRA.
Yeah, tell them you're with the IRA and Liam will.
You know, if there's sides of beef hanging inside, it's the perfect place to have a meeting.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get to a little introduction here. Our guest on this, our second official episode of the Vagabonds podcast, is Mr. Mike Arrighi. And he's got a long and interesting background. We've known him for many, many years. He's actually a character in our book, Vagabonds, Tourists in the Heart of Darkness. So, Mike, I'm going to let you tell our enormous viewing audience who you are, where you've been, and how you got there.
Before you do that, let me just add this footnote in that, is that as you go through life, you meet people that have talent, have so much promise in the beginning, and eventually they become your competition. And Mike's one of those people. You know, he's vying for our spot, which is exactly what
I think he's got higher
higher
goals in sight.
Well, how could that be?
Well, I've known you two Vagabonds since 1983.
That long? Jesus.
That long. When you guys were working for the IACP. And on my own dime and on my own time, I came to the school you were teaching. And quite frankly, your subject matter revolutionized the way a lot of SWAT was operated on the East Coast.
Wow.
Yeah, no, because a lot of the SWAT teams, and I hate to say this, but we saw similar recently. People want to sneak and peek and not put themselves in harm's way. But what you guys did, well, they call it a close quarter battle now, but battle's a negative term in police circles, and rightfully so. You called it dynamic entry. And we took that concept, and I was in a position where I was able to educate many, many other SWAT team members and even general police public about doing difficult entries. And it includes linear target assault, planes, trains, and automobiles. I was working with the RCMP back in the 80s, and we did some cross training, and I showed them linear target assault. And then a couple of years later, you had that knucklehead drive to Winnipeg, and the passenger bus gets stuck in the mud. But that was a technique that was employed there as well.
Good. I remember when we first met you, you were a young, eager patrol officer, I believe. And then
I was in patrol.
We watched you grow up through the ranks. You eventually became a detective with robbery homicide.
Yeah, when I left. I had 12 years in when I left.
Two Valor Awards, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, they kind of jumped out at me.
Good for you.
Well,
that established the fact that, well, you know, this kid's got some promise. We can probably do something.
Well, what prompted you after 12 years to pull the pin on that career and head off in new directions?
Well, let me just say one thing first to give Nick his comeuppance. When I met him, he threw me off a 3-story building and said, hello. Fortunately, I was on rope.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I had a opportunity halfway to retirement to go to the private sector, to work for one of the fast food companies who just acquired a chain in the Northeast. And it was Hardee's. They're from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I love them all, still do. But hey, they needed somebody who could, could work the cities and work with NYPD and Philly PD and Jersey City and DC and kind of understood that environment.
Yeah. And you did well in it. Yeah. You went to Iraq, and was it Iraq first or Afghanistan? Iraq.
I left Hardee's after 5 years. Was the original director of global security for Capital One Financial. And then
That's right.
Capital One.
I'd forgotten all about that.
Oh, yeah, Capital One. Yeah. I think somebody in the administration asked you one time, you owe this guy money?
No. I remember I was with the IACP convention, and you see the handwriting on the wall at that level. I knew I was going to be like a boll weevil searching for a home.
Oh.
And I was sitting at a bar, imagine that, in one of the hotels with Nick. And even at that time, we were hatching plans and schemes.
So how long did you spend in Iraq?
4 years. And directly or indirectly, I've got you to thank and blame for it. Because you called me.
I think we can get some money out of them for those.
Probably not.
Nah. You called me up and said, hey, Feeney. Now, when Nick's talking about Feeney, he's talking about Don Feeney, who's like talking to Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Hey.
I want to be the go-to guy.
You think that armor's going to jump on the vehicle itself? Get the fucking put it on there. So, but I had oddly enough, I knew Don and his crew prior from when I was at Hardee's. They were at Brack. I had friends down there at this building on Range Road.
Yeah.
And I called him. I called him Colonel Flag. You figure it out.
That is so true. That is it. Colonel Flag. I
said, do you know anybody? He says, you know of Don? I said, yeah. The guy that invented the re-kidnapping industry. And so I reached down for Feeney's people. He's not there. So I drive down there from Rocky Mount. And then I engaged them. We had a legitimate stalking, potentially violent stalking against our CEO. And with their able assistance and skill set, they were able to help us knock it out. My boss was like, look, I'll stay back. I'm not going to go to the conference. I said, this is why you hired me. I know this world a little bit, at that time. And so then years go by.
And you went, when you finished up in Iraq, you went to Afghanistan with the construction company, right?
Correct. I worked for 3 construction companies, 1 security company. That was Feeney's. And, I got to give Don some credit. He did not discriminate. You either have to be dead A, or you have to do this, you have to be 75th Bat, or you have to be SEAL Team 6. He had all sorts of people working for him so he could get different opinions, tactically and operationally. And I always respected that about Don.
I just saw Feeney on Facebook. He had his picture up there when he was skinny and handsome with his little porno mustache. Yeah, it was touching.
I have pictures of me when I was on the SWAT team of that era.
I
And
think I've seen.
my wife has referred to it as porn stash.
I always like the one where you're still able to kick over the top of somebody else's head.
Them days are long gone.
Well, yeah. Now we don't bother to get into kick position. We get the tire iron out of the trunk and start dealing. Yeah.
Well, at my age and physical prowess, I have a hard time kicking leaves.
You're looking good, Mike. Really. It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys, man.
We been a while. Been a while. Yeah. So you went to Afghanistan, you're with the construction companies and that. But between the two, the protective details in Iraq as opposed to what you were doing in Afghanistan, what was the biggest difference?
Actually, I think they're two very different operating theaters. Because you had like Petraeus, who I met a couple times. He wanted to equate everything in Afghanistan to Iraq. Very different, very different. I consider myself fortunate is because in both countries, I lived basically on the economy. I ran the streets. I had my own little posses, the Afghani kids or the Iraqi kids.
Hopefully you picked that habit up from us.
I picked a lot of habits up from
Speak
you
for
guys.
yourself.
Yeah. Why do you say that with such that sad face?
Oh, the pain. So yeah, I did security, I did logistics, I did movement, I did let's keep these rogue operators in line that we're paying big money to look after us. Too many of them, guys, and I'll be really honest with you. Thought we were there to give them a paycheck. And you can edit this out, but I got into, shall we say, rather loud discussions with the very well-trained guys who I love to this day. But that's not the way we did it on Teams, not the way we did it on Teams. I said, you're not on Teams anymore. There's a profit and loss sheet here you have to consider. So instead of every time we go out, you wind the clients up. I used to ride with this one British outfit, SASers, most of them. And I thought it was a good day when I can sit back of their non-armored Suburban, and it was surplus from the Ulster Defense Force.
Yeah.
So, it was a Peugeot that could barely run, but I could fall asleep on the way back to Baghdad and take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. Protective camouflage. Yeah. If it looks like a beat up heap, people don't pay attention to it, which is why we get away with some of the stuff we do.
Because you just look beat up?
We look like beat up wrecks. Yeah. Man, nothing there. Yeah, don't pay attention to them.
Well, that's the same thing.
Short one. Yeah.
I used to get mad, not angry mad, because I loved them. We were able to get most of them out in Afghanistan. Don't wash my car.
Yeah,
and stay away from convoys and MRAPs because they're explosive and bullet magnets.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I built 6 Capri Classics, 1994 through 1996, and we made 2 of them 4-wheel drive for a client over in Iraq, and they loved it because we painted them with the orange quarter panels so they looked like a taxi. The curtains in the back in case you had a woman on board, they couldn't look inside. Yeah, and they loved them because they never got shot at. Another Capri Classic on the road.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, if I could have whatever armored car I want, even soft vehicle, give me a Toyota Corolla. It is the most nondescript vehicle in the world. And you guys know from what we've done, the choke points. And you get to a choke point and you look like, very Western. The guy might make the choice, but if you don't look exactly like the Westerner, you might be able to make it off the X and get out of the immediate blast radius before they detonate or figure it out.
Yeah.
I heard when you were in Kabul, you got so into being looking like the locals that they started calling you Pasha.
Your intel's bad.
My intel is bad. Oh, it's okay.
In Iraq, they
Weird.
did. In Iraq, they did call me Haji because I stood up for a bunch of them for their lieutenant who was ripping them off. Have to pay tribute to him all the time,
Yeah.
and we sorted that out.
Yep. Yep. Interesting life. And then when you left Afghanistan, you went to Doha.
Yeah, I went to Doha, Qatar, as a academic.
You were right on campus.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was fun. Met some very fascinating people. Virginia Commonwealth University is one of the most respected public art schools in the U.S. They have a campus in Education City, which, gentlemen, watch the skies because Qatar's about to become a big news item because of the World Cup.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah. Sisa.
Yeah, but you know, we've all traveled in difficult circles. Qatar. Explain Qatar is here's Saudi, here's Dubai. Now Qatar's like this. It depends on the day, depends on the subject. We can go a little bit left or right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I spent 9 years there, and it was quite interesting.
You spent 9 years in Qatar?
Yeah.
Geez, I thought you were only there a couple of years.
No, the interesting thing about that location is like the Gulf. You want to go on holiday? You're within 8 hours of 75% of the world's population.
Yeah. That's one thing about the Middle East, you know, especially the Emirates and that, is they're centrally located to go either Asia or Europe, or make the long jaunt back to Cincinnati.
That 14-hour flight back to the U.S., I never enjoyed. Fortunately, my employer generally made sure I flew business class.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to nowadays.
Well, flying now.
International flights in coach are like torture.
Now, I was just planning for a trip, and we're looking for business class because I'm too old to sit in coach for 20 hours. I've done it on a duffel bag, but I don't want to do it anymore. But the average business class ticket to the destination was between $6,000 and $7,500 to fly in. And of course, the schedules are all screwed up because you're flying business. Most of them don't have business anymore. They have premium. Premium means you get a little bit more legroom. I think it's like 1.5 inches. But we went to London one time in Miller, found some tickets that were like premium. And I said, what's premium about this? It looks like every other seat. She said, no, it's got a special thing. So I went back to use the John. I came back and he pulled out this shelf from below. And evidently the premium was so you could spoon each other all the way to London. They made into a little bed. Luckily, we didn't do that because there was 2 gentlemen that had an argument in front of us. They were a couple. And the older one was complaining because the younger one didn't rub his feet properly. So we didn't spoon, but we had entertainment.
Might I ask you which airline, if you're willing to name it?
I don't even remember. I don't know.
I think it was
years ago.
United. Something.
I don't know. It might have been British.
It wasn't BOA. No.
I try to stay away from American Airlines when I'm going overseas.
Just like you stay away from the American Embassy.
I prefer South Asian airlines like Singapore and Thai and Malaysia. Or Emirates Air is okay. Lufthansa is really good. I flew with the Spider Woman first class on Lufthansa to Geneva, and that was a good flight.
Never been the same since. All that intrigue. So, Mike, you're retired now, or you still got your finger in somewhere?
I'm retired like you guys are retired.
Shit, it's still working.
Yeah, you got 3 jobs.
Yeah, 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget that GoFundMe site, nickandjeffneedmoney.com.
So that hasn't changed.
Well, of course. Yeah. It's like, when we were talking about how we pretty much started the contractor industry. Our generation did. Guys went off to Rhodesia and did things in South America and that. And there was no real structure there like there is now.
Well, you didn't have the hedge funders financing it.
Well, yeah.
In the old days, you'd find somebody.
We could barely get the coke dealers to finance us.
I forgot about that.
And you complain about me singing German marching songs?
Yes, I do.
That's good.
Speaking of which, this got ahead a bit, but you've just stepped into it. I'm at a base in southern Iraq, and I'm like, running this place called South Park because it's on a Iraqi base. So I'm the major domo, housing, food, DFAC, everything else. But this older chap rocks up, and he's like, it took him 3 days to get there. He's got his little rolly, what do you call it, a bag, and he wants to play Who Do You Know? And he goes, Billy Waugh? I said, I don't know Billy Waugh, but I know Nick Brockhausen. He says, is Brockhausen still getting drunk and getting on tables and singing German war marches? I went, yeah, Nick.
Cut. Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's a small world, Mike.
Especially in our community.
Things come back to haunt you long after you've buried them yourself.
It is a small
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that I was anxious to have you on, all I've ever heard is Nick's side of the lion story. And I want to hear your side of the lion story.
Oh, yeah. So do I. So do I.
I was in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. In the bathroom? Really? The lion came in after you?
Yeah, and we snuggled. No, it was really funny. I mean, I was just so gobsmacked by seeing this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful creature. And I've always been a softie for lions. And Nick and Rick, I could tell you stories about them fighting like an old married.
9 older uncle types.
Yeah. Yes, I know Rick well.
Thank God I'm drinking.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and these guys are fitting out the van, and it was, I don't know if you addressed it directly in the book or not. You might not have. It's no fault. We thought that the daughter may have staged an attempted break-in at her hacienda. Remember that?
Right.
So then, and the client had this huge yard. Remember, he had his bowling alley, his gun range, he had his
movie theater.
Yeah, nightclub, everything. So this chopper starts flying above, and I'm playing with Chyla. We're batting back and forth. And she's looked up first at the chopper. We didn't know it was going to land, because remember, they just killed 6 or 7 people in Guanajuato.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just before that.
Yeah. Well, even this recently, they got in a firefight with Sinaloa and killed a bunch of them.
Well, Guanajuato and Celaya, they're all cartel now.
Yeah.
All cartel.
I know. So I'm looking at the chopper, and all of a sudden, I feel something tightening on my boot. So the incisor goes between my big toe and my index toe, and then I feel a tug.
Which sweeps me off my feet.
Well, I had enough time to undo my shoelace and figure for myself against the cage. And I go, Nick, I'm busy. What do you want? Nick, come over here, Nick. I had to keep fucking with the lion, did you? Where's your camera? I don't know. It was in my pocket.
If I remember rightly, he made you to take it out, and then he took you a picture of it with your camera. And then the old Mexican guy came out that took care of the lion with a rolled up. He had a roll of lotto tickets, and he hit the lion on the nose. That she let go. Then she went over to the corner of the cage and looked at us like, "You want some of this shit too?" Yeah.
No, that was a cool animal. It really was. Speaking of the lion, the guy sitting next to you said, "Why don't we put the lion in the cage, and then go get the kidnappers and throw them in the cage and let Chyla talk to him?"
Hey, simple plan, you know, should work. Plan B. Yeah, that was a good trip, Mikey. And that was a great one of those where you establish bonds with people. You look at the guy and go, "This boy, thank God, he's made like a crash dummy, and he's got potential."
Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know that lion story is in a lot of places now.
Oh yeah,
always his version of it, but it's we did 2 podcasts for the Spy Museum. Actually, we've done 3 podcasts for the Spy Museum in New York, and 2 of them are about Mexico, and one of them, of course, includes that lion story. And I think you told that lion story to Murphy and his partner when we were on theirs, and it's in the book. And now
I've told it to a number of women.
You're going to be that, and
only in that.
This is the first time anybody really knows who that was. So now you're going to be famous.
Oh, well, this was not my idea to expose you to this kind of embarrassment, Mike.
I revel in it, and I can say, and I'm going to shut up, but no, I'm not. Of course not. I've been in 2 wars, run revolution. I've been run over. I've been shot twice. I've been tracked by a polar bear and bitten by a lion.
And I've been to the rodeo. Yeah. Well, you know, we're trying to get guests on that have interesting backgrounds, and you know, kind of show the rest of America that there's don't trust old people ever.
Well, you met my old friend from the 11th, Bill Charnock. We had beers that Sunday afternoon. Bill unfortunately, he's passed, but age and treachery will always overcome youth and skill.
That's right. Age and, you know, what is it? Old age and deceit. Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the book is obviously about being off the beaten track to a certain degree, and yeah, we want guests that have been there and been off the track and done things that other people wish they could have done or think they wish they could have done. Because a lot of those things you wish you could have done, when you actually do them, aren't really all that much fun.
Well, you know, there's a dichotomy. You look to the left and look to the right. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Now let's get our ass out of here. Then we can drink and forget about it and have fun.
Yeah.
When you're doing that, look to the left and look to the right, I always think of the Blues Brothers. Remember the 2 Nazis when they go off the end of the freeway and they're falling, and the bigger one goes, "I've always loved you."
Hilarious.
The bizarre.
But you know, you guys, both of you guys, you know, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Gonna want a royalty for that.
And I also did you mention you also made a stop in Libya on your travel?
I was in Libya the day Gaddafi got killed.
Really?
I think it was October 11th or 13th, 2011.
Yeah.
So
what are you doing?
Oh, seeing some old friends.
Yeah, man. Yeah, what are you doing?
Checking my mail.
Okay. Let's play a little game here. Pick one thing, one characteristic for each of those populations. What was the difference between Iraq and the Afghanis and the Libyans? The one major thing that stood out that set them apart from the others.
Let me start with the Libyans. My last name ends in a vowel. I know the Italians have spent some time in North Africa and in Libya. You could tell by the architecture, you could tell by the food, the pleasant nature of the average person in Tripoli. I stepped off the curb one morning in Tripoli, and this is where all Chevrolet Caprices go to die.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Usually with a camel in the back.
Or a sheep.
Oh, yeah.
It's the extended cab for the camel. So it's hilarious. And I thought the guy was lining me up to run me over, like in a lot of other places in that part of the world. No,
Yeah.
my friend, please, please, please. And then we get in the car, and I'm with two other Yanks. And one guy from SBS who was working with us, and one guy from SAS. Very great guys, tip top. I'd go with them anywhere.
They usually are, laid back.
You may know him or may not, but the SAS guy was a chap named Jim Foster, who well known in combat circles as a trooper and as working for Sky News.
Well, that crowd's younger generation than ours.
Yeah. But then in Afghanistan, the difference for me was if you get outside the population area, it's very much a tribal culture with tribal sensibilities. And I'm not making a judgment. I mean, but look at Libya. They have almost like Cuba, 100% literacy rate. Yeah, that's cool. But then
thanks to Gaddafi too.
You will read.
Yeah, yeah.
So 70% of the people in Afghanistan, latest time I checked it, cannot read or write. And of the 30% that can, 13% are females. And in Iraq, it was just a troubled, broken country. They had suffered under the yoke of Gaddafi, but there's people that miss Gaddafi. Not Gaddafi, I'm sorry, Saddam Hussein. Because, sure. Yeah, he knew how to keep us in line.
Yeah, it's almost German.
Well, yeah.
Careful.
Well, it's he did know how to keep the minority religious groups in line, and nobody's been able to do much about it since. That's for sure, including us.
I loved our intentions, but I lost faith in the missions in both theaters, and I had to make a vow to myself that my job, was to get my peeps back safely to their friends and families. And so
problem with both those places was that it wasn't. They intended to fight an unending war, just keep the money rolling, and the thing goes on. Keep lying to people back home. Oh yeah, we got everything under control. When in effect they didn't. In the very beginning they did, but then they lost it very quickly.
Well, bottom line, too much money to be made. I mean, we had
look at what's going on now. Yeah.
We had there was a place, and you both of you guys know it was true, called the Baghdad Country Club. And I was running into guys who were hired companies. They were hired by the U.S. government to write the history of the war. So what they do is that they routinely spend every night on an expense account buying everybody that would talk to them bevies and whatever else was available. Yeah.
I thought did they ever publish this tome? I think it would be fascinating.
Well, it might be a limited run distribution under U.S. government imprimatur.
Yeah.
Didn't you know that Major Gant The one that wrote the book, One Village at a Time. One was running around, had the Spartan symbol on all his, the lambda Greek symbol on all his vehicles and that. Had his girlfriend living with him. Did you know him?
No, I knew of him. A lot of people knew of him.
Well, you were fortunate you actually knew Feeney. Most people knew of Feeney.
No. The pirate. I love him. hey, you, Mike, because I got recruited away. Go ahead, Jeff.
Did you ever cross paths with Idema?
Jack Idema?
His name was Keith when I knew him, and he changed it to Jack.
We knew him as a buck sergeant.
Yeah, I knew. He used to come. He was in the 11th Special Forces Group in Virginia, and used to come up to Devens for summer camp. And everybody thought that he was a goofball, and a shit shouter. I can say that on it. When that whole thing went down, Colonel German, who'd been my battalion commander at Devens, called me and said, "This name Idema sounds kind of familiar to me. Was he in the 10th with us?" And I said, "No, he was in the 11th, but he used to come up and hang around with us in the summer." He goes, "Oh, I knew his name from somewhere, but he apparently was batshit crazy over there."
Well, let's talk. Let's talk. I told you I was working with the ex-SA 22nd SAS guy, Jim Foster, who became a cameraman for Sky or whatever. He's the one that was the cameraman when they interviewed Idema in Polychokri prison. And Jim never told him that he knew of him, had the whole packet on him.
Yeah. He's one thing, he was flamboyant. He ended up dying in Mexico of AIDS.
Yeah.
And just he was such a flake, but that's the thing. I mean, we try to strive and present a professional approach to things and that. But it seems like the wackos, they can find money laying underneath mattresses. They get clients that come in. "I've heard of you on the television." Yeah. And you're sitting in your office going, "Man, I've done everything right. How come nobody's calling me?"
Idema really hurt Robin Moore. If you remember, Robin Moore wrote the prelude, the beginning to Task Force Dagger.
Yeah.
And Robin wasn't in good health at that time. And it's a disgrace that unfortunately Robin Moore got pulled into that.
Yeah. Well, I wrote that fiction, The Tears of God. And before I wrote it, I talked to Robin Moore because the Casca series that he did with Barry Sadler and during the 60s, which we all read while we were in the A camps or sitting around, was one of those pulp fictions. But I asked him about using his character, Casca, in a book that was updated. And he said, "You don't need my permission. He was a real person." So that's when I started actually researching who Gaius Casca Longinus, who he was, where he came from, and that. It was just before that stuff with Idema went down. He'd come up to the SOA. I think twice he was there. He was there with his Overwatch, the Dragon Lady. Yeah. Idema was what a piece of work.
He was a piece of work. Jimmy Trainer introduced me to him. So right off the bat,
Trainer,
I was immediately on guard.
Yeah. Hey, Trainer has somebody he wants to introduce you.
The other guy is, and there's a story that relates to him. Did you ever run into the guy that writes the books about the world's most dangerous places?
Oh, Robert Young Pelton.
Yeah. Oh, monsieur.
You ran into him? I ran into him in an encampment in Burma. And I was there with Hebler.
With the
Karen National Liberation Army. And he came in one day and left the next day. He was there one night exactly. We'd already been there for over a month when he arrived. So he comes down to where we are to just bullshit away the evening, like you always do. And he starts telling me this story about how he was in Afghanistan and had created this intelligence network that was the envy of the CIA, MI6, and the DGSE combined. And then this guy came and took it away from him and ruined it.
Oh, Dewey Claridge?
Well,
I told you he would break.
I wasn't going to use the full name, but yeah.
Now that you blurted it out,
he said that he stole his intelligence network and subverted it and ruined it. And I never mentioned that I knew him. I just sit there and listen, and I'm like, wow, really? That's a name I haven't heard for a long time. Is he still alive? No, I know he's not now.
Yeah. Robert started popping up again on LinkedIn, and we have a lot of mutual acquaintances, and I can't say I was particularly enamored with the book he wrote when he was in Afghanistan, License to Kill. But I think he gave a very accurate portrait of some of those knuckleheads.
What was the book that you sent me that had you in it with the pictures in it?
With a fold out?
Yeah.
No, that was.
Remember this one?
Stand up. We want to see the staple in your belly.
Yeah.
Oh God, Big Boy Rules, American.
Big Boy Rules. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? Who wrote that?
Steve Fanneru, who actually won the Pulitzer Prize for international reporting that year when he's working for the Washington Post. I consulted with him during it, and then just before the last episode dropped around Christmas, he says, "You want your picture in the Washington Post?" I went, "I gotta live here."
Yeah.
So they quoted me and put it on some general. So I'm like, so yeah, Steve. And the interesting thing about Steve,
which by the way was for those of you out there in the audience, and that the book is an excellent book about what really happened on the ground and both those theaters and that, especially with the private protection details and that, the contractors. And you can get a picture of Mike when he was much younger and handsome.
Well, much younger.
So,
looks like I'm telling you, he looks like he ought to own about 500 sheep.
Nah. So bad. So the interesting thing about Steve and his brother Mark, they wrote the first definitive study of CET, or the equivalent of TBI, about professional football, called League of Denial, which PBS made a special about it. The book did very well. So, he wasn't a one-trick pony. He was a very nice, learned guy. And people wanted to come after him about, lying about what we were doing in Iraq.
Well, let me guess where that crowd was. Did they have flippers on? Well, we've made friends with some of them.
Yeah, we have.
We have.
Our last podcast was who's now a congressman.
You want to see Eli?
Oh, great.
Frank. Yeah. Nice kid. You'd never guess he'd ever been a SEAL. Very mild-mannered, family-oriented.
Yeah, it doesn't have the normal braggadocio that you tend to assume with that group.
Yeah, and certain contractors.
Yeah.
Well, what's the answer? Some of my best friends are SEALs.
Some of them are wearing shirts.
Well, Nick, you always said naval personnel with small arms above the waterline's a bad idea.
Bad program. Very bad programming right there. Yeah.
Well, just like when I was a cop, I said, accountants and lawyers with guns, because they're FBI agents. I'm like, bad idea.
Oh, that's what they are.
Bad idea.
And look what's happened.
Accountants with guns. There you go.
They're they have lost all their goodwill and credibility that they ever had at this point.
So Mike, as a older person now, how old are you now?
64.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting up in the blue hair region.
Yeah.
So
He isn't even old
Are
enough
you-
to get Social Security yet. Come on.
Well, Grecian formula works really well.
Yeah.
that means he's up to something. Oh, maybe we can get in on it. Yeah.
Good job.
Anyway, for the public out there, we all share a commonality in that we all love this great republic with all our heart, and we come from diverse backgrounds, but the job's the same. It just it comes apart in different formats. And you've had a very, very interesting life, going from law enforcement to contractor to head of security for a major university, satellite campus. And don't forget that website, nickandjeffneedmoney.com. Social Security sucks.
Well, Karen, my wife, has gotten on it, and she wants to make sure I go up to the Social Security office. Being back in the U.S. is weird, man. So it's not too far. I can pretty much navigate myself and find everything I need.
Yeah, and don't believe them when they tell you that you have to have a chip inserted under the skin in the back of your neck.
Yeah, don't fall for that, man.
That's
I fell for that, and I woke up with some Australian guys.
it's not true.
Good day, mate. Good day, mate.
Remember, a wet, passionate kiss is the greatest thing to get in the morning, unless you're in prison.
Well, I remember another mutual friend of ours who knew Dewey, and you're going to know who I'm talking about. And he lived a bon vivant lifestyle. He says, "Remember, Mike, you don't pay hookers to stay; you pay them to leave."
To leave after sex. Yeah.
Well, I think we've got enough in this can, as they say. That's technical industry terminology for us
Mike,
professionals.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come up here and be on. Really.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being there.
Extremely proud of your career, almost like parents.
Hey,
for the parental support check.
Yeah.
Love both you guys, man. We've been through too much together and apart not to appreciate our backgrounds in each other.
Okay.
Love you, brother.
All right, brother.
We will talk to you. Hopefully this will be on the air in a few days. Anyway, maybe over the weekend. We'll see.
Keep me posted.
After everything Nick has said has been thoroughly bleeped out, then we'll get it.
Well, let me tell me when you guys need some more adult supervision.
Well, you plan to move to Arizona, do you?
To a condo made of stone.
Come on down. There's plenty of room here.
Yeah.
Nobody here but us chickens.
All right, brothers. Take care.
Okay.
Take care.
So long.
Love you.
Run, run, run from the dragon, from the treason. Far enough till I reach your warm season. Run, 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 in the long run I recover. Pull myself but I listen, no other.
Toxic Masculinity Whiskey. It'll make you dance better than every liberal on TikTok.
Run, run, run from the dragon, from the treason. Far enough till I reach your warm season. Run, run.